Let's imagine you're shopping for a new refrigerator. Let's say you decide on an LG stainless steel 22 cubic feet refrigerator with an ice maker. You can buy that at Home Depot for $1,300. Alternatively, you could buy that same exact refrigerator at Rent-A-Center for zero money down and 99 weekly payments of $40. If you do the math, you'll end up paying about $4,000 over the course of a little under 2 years. That's the equivalent of a 150% annualized interest rate compared to the price at Home Depot. Despite charging astronomical effective interest rates, rent-to-own stores like Rent-A-Center are extremely popular in the US. There are over 10,000 rent-to-own stores in the country, with millions of regular shoppers. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the economics of rent-to-own, and why so many consumers choose to shop there. Rent-A-Center is the largest rent-to-own retailer in the US, with over 2,000 brick-and-mortar locations, as well as an e-commerce website. They sell high-ticket items including furniture, home appliances, and consumer electronics. While you can buy their products for a one-time cash payment if you want, the majority of their customers choose rent-to-own options. The leases are usually paid weekly, and there are typically no down payments. The low monthly payments are an attractive option for cash-constrained consumers who don't have the cash on hand to purchase a refrigerator or television outright. Rent-to-own retailers give leases to pretty much anyone, and they don't require a credit check. This makes rent-to-own an attractive option for people with poor credit. In its investor presentations, Rent-A-Center brags about how poor its customers are. 25% of US households have an annual household income of less than $30,000. 53% of Rent-A-Center's customers fall within this demographic. The average credit score of a Rent-A-Center customer is 535. Anything below 580 is usually considered bad. Thus, Rent-A-Center customers are unlikely to be approved for most credit cards and personal loans. If we look at Google Trends results for rent-to-own searches, the map looks almost exactly the same as the poverty heat map. The top 5 states for rent-to-own are Louisiana, Mississippi, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Alabama. The top 2 states, Louisiana and Mississippi, are both in the worst category, with over 18% of the population living below the poverty line. West Virginia and Arkansas are in the second worst category. Alabama is in the third worst category. If we look more generally, rent-to-own is popular in the Deep South and Appalachian regions of the United States, which are also the poorest regions. It is true that rent-to-own retailers offer a value proposition to low-income consumers with poor credit scores, but this doesn't tell the entire story. Let's take the example of this Acer monitor, which you can rent-to-own at Rent-A-Center for $13 per week for 36 weeks. This gives a total cost of $467. This same monitor is available on Acer's website for $80. Even if you don't have $80 in your wallet to buy the monitor today, you'd only need to save $13 per week for 6 weeks to buy it outright. Are people really so impatient that they're willing to pay a 6 times higher price just to get an item 6 weeks earlier? The main controversy around rent-to-own retailers is deceptive sales practices. Many consumers just see that the weekly payments are very low and don't realize how much they're getting ripped off. In most states, rent-to-own retailers don't disclose the effective interest rates they charge compared to the prevailing retail prices of their products. Technically, the transactions are leases, not loans, so legally speaking, no interest is being paid. In the early 2000s, the state of Wisconsin sued Rent-A-Center as well as other rent-to-own retailers for violating consumer protection laws. Specifically, they alleged that rent-to-own retailers were deceiving customers by not disclosing the effective interest rates. The consumer protection laws in Wisconsin effectively made the rent-to-own business model unworkable. In response, Rent-A-Center rebranded all of its Wisconsin stores to a new brand called Get It Now. Get It Now sells pretty much the same selection of products as Rent-A-Center, but instead of doing rent-to-own, they provide financing on all products. Let's take the example of this Acer Aspire Go laptop, which you can buy at Get It Now for 38 weekly payments of $20 each, plus 10% down. They claim that this represents a 30% APR. While 30% is kind of high, it's at least within the realm of what you might pay on a credit card. It doesn't seem too outrageous. Also, it's significantly lower than the effective APRs charged by Rent-A-Center. Remember, we calculated a 150% effective APR for the LG refrigerator when compared to the price at Home Depot. 30% is much lower by comparison. So does this mean the Wisconsin regulations were effective? Unfortunately, no. Based on the information provided, we can calculate the price of the laptop. This is a bit more complicated than you might think, as you need to calculate the amortization schedule based on the weekly payments and APR. You can write some equations to solve this, but unless you have a math degree, the quickest option is to go to an online amortization schedule calculator and guess and check numbers. I did exactly that and found that the principal amount borrowed needs to be $681 to get to a 30% APR. Remember that there's also 10% down, so the total price of the laptop is $760 with a $76 down payment. I found the exact same laptop selling on Amazon brand new for $295, less than half of the implied price at Get It Now. That's how they try to trick people. They inflate the price of the product so they can advertise an artificially low APR. Now let's calculate the APR based on the real price of $295. The down payment is $76, so the principal balance of the loan is $219. To get to a $20 monthly payment, the APR is 455%. These interest rates are obviously absurd, but why do millions of Americans still shop at the likes of Get It Now and Rent-A-Center? Realistically, the type of people who shop at Rent-A-Center are probably not the type of people who would take the time to do these calculations. Another subtle marketing gimmick they use is to charge weekly payments. Most subscriptions and interest payments are charged monthly. People subconsciously compare the weekly Rent-A-Center prices to their monthly bills, which makes it seem much cheaper than they actually are. $20 per week might sound like a lot less than $80 per month. Rent-to-own retailers cater towards consumers with bad credit scores, so naturally they suffer a large number of defaults. When you sign a lease with Rent-A-Center, you are required to provide a personal reference such as a friend, as well as a professional reference such as your boss at work. If you stop making your payments, Rent-A-Center representatives will start calling you, trying to get you to pay. In some cases, they'll call multiple times per day, starting on the first day after you miss the payment. If they can't reach you, they'll start calling your references. In many cases, Rent-A-Center customers will list their friends or bosses as references without their knowledge. The references will start receiving harassing calls from Rent-A-Center, asking them to get their friend or coworker to start making payments. This is a humiliating experience for the delinquent customer and serves as a strong motivation to resume payments. Rent-A-Center will send their employees to confront delinquent customers in person, either at their home or their workplace, to either collect the payment or repossess the property. In cases where the customer still refuses to pay, Rent-A-Center will file a civil lawsuit against the customer. In extreme cases, they sometimes even file criminal charges. Because the property technically still belongs to Rent-A-Center during the term of the lease, their collection employees have far more latitude to engage in aggressive collection efforts as compared to traditional debt collectors. Rent-A-Center's customers often live in impoverished and dangerous neighborhoods, which can often lead to unsafe situations for Rent-A-Center's collections managers. Here's a short clip from a YouTuber called Simba TV who briefly worked for Rent-A-Center and shares his experience.
We knock on this dude's door that is like a week late on his payment. This big buff ass comes out and he looked like Tookie Williams. He's huge. He's like big tribal tattoos and stuff. I was scared. I was like, no, I'm not having it. He goes back up to the dude and tells him that he has to either take the TV or he has to pay him $100 to keep the TV. The dude basically tells him, get the off my porch. Puts a gun out in his face and tells him to leave, right? I'm in a car. I don't want no issues.
According to Glassdoor, collections managers at Rent-A-Center only get paid $16 to $18 per hour. That's a shockingly low amount to be paid for such a difficult and dangerous job. Most rent-to-own stores are located in poor neighborhoods with little economic opportunity, allowing them to hire collections managers for relatively cheap wages. The rent-to-own industry preys on the poor and financially illiterate customers who are enticed into seemingly low weekly lease payments but end up paying multiples more than the value of the products. This has trapped millions of people into a cycle of poverty, where they end up spending almost all their disposable income just to keep the furniture in their house. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about rent-to-own? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.